Okay, guys. So how we're going to work this evening is we're obviously going to do our NSS first. We're going to go through the assignment, go through all the content that is needed. Awesome, well done. So we're going to be just focusing on breaking down this assignment or this part so that you are familiar with what you need to do. I know a lot of you have already been working on it and have been asking me lots of questions already, but I just want to go through everything from scratch so everyone is on the same page as me so that we all comfortable with what you guys are going to be doing. So to start off, just a reminder with regards to referencing. I know this would have been covered by other not lecturers, your other OTs. Just remember that we do have the ability to take up to minus 10%, so minus 5 or minus 10%. And that is there for poor referencing. So that might mean that you only reference at the end of a paragraph, that you use, one or two references throughout a whole page, that you have paraphrased something poorly, but you've still referenced it, so you've still acknowledged. It's all those minor idiosyncrasies which impact the overall presentation of the work that you submit. So, if you go and do direct copy and pasting, if you go and use paraphrase tools, if you go and don't reference big chunks of stuff, then obviously you get flagged, and we don't want that. We don't want you being flagged because then obviously that negatively impacts you. But at the same time, we've got to make sure that we are keeping the standards as they should be. So please just be very aware with regards to your referencing. Please be pedantic with everything that you reference. My view is I'd rather you reference too much than too little, because then at least I can see you are attempting to reference and you are trying to do the best you can rather than too little. Please remember, even if you only use one source within a paragraph, you can't just put an in-text reference at the end of that paragraph, because what you're telling me is that that entire paragraph is paraphrased, that there are none of your own thoughts, none of your own views, no other sources, and so on. And it also technically means that only that last sentence that is in that paragraph has been referenced. So you have to reference throughout. Every time you use a source, you need to reference it. So please, please, please be careful. I am quite strict when it comes to referencing, as are your other OTs, because it's important in academics. All right. Are there any other questions with regards to referencing specifically? I have had someone ask if you can have more than 5 sources. Of course, no problem at all if you have more than 5 sources. Okay. Guys, can I just ask, I don't have my phone with me for some reason, but my watch has told me someone has asked in our WhatsApp group for the link for the collab. If I could just, and my WhatsApp won't open on my laptop, if I could just ask one of you to share the link again, or just say it's in the description above, something like that, if you could just help me out, because I don't want to get up and thank you, I see that. I didn't want to get up and go get my phone, because I only realized now I didn't have it. All right, so if you're concerned about your referencing, you're welcome to send me a screenshot and say, is this referenced sufficiently? I won't read through the content, but I can look at the referencing, or you can get hold of the library and they will help you with referencing. So there are multiple avenues to get assistance. Just know that tomorrow until obviously the long weekend, but I'm away tomorrow until Monday with very poor signal. So if I don't reply straight away, it's just because of that. If I get into signal and I can reply, I will, but just know that if I don't reply to you, I'm not ignoring you. I just don't have connectivity. Okay. Just going to be in the bush, which means a lack of signal. Okay. So let's have a look at the instructions. So your part is one question. All right. I know it does say that you need to stay within the word limit. I am a little bit lenient when it comes to word count. I give a 10% leeway. So if the max is 18 and you add on 180 words, I'm not going to penalize you. I know that generally the people that are going over word count are those that have got a lot of references, and obviously references do impact your word count. So I do give that 10% leeway. So please don't freak out and take away relevant content just to stay under the word count, because that's basically working against yourself, especially if you've got content that is of use. Okay. Then it says here, remember you've got to use in-text referencing as well as a full reference list at the end of the essay, and then a minimum of at least 5 different academic sources. So obviously your 2 textbooks are 2 sources and then 3 additional online sources. Like as some of you have asked, it is absolutely fine if the sources are older, from the 40s, 50s upwards, because we are dealing with a topic that is to do with apartheid and what have you. So obviously the sources are from, a long time ago. So just don't panic if you are finding that you're having a couple of old sources. That's absolutely fine. It's not a essay that is focusing purely on the current situation. All right. Were you panicking, Grace? I don't like panicking students. So I'm just having a cup of tea while I do the NSS with you guys. I've had a very long day of lecturing, so my throat is mighty sore. No, you mustn't panic 24/7. Not when it comes to Jern. Okay, message me. And you, well, Cameron, you have been messaging me, so that's fine. Can we use abbreviation? Okay, so Almas, so for the abbreviations, you type it out in full the first time, and then you can use abbreviations the rest of the time. No problem at all. Otherwise, again, just takes up word count, which we don't need. Okay. All right, guys, so let's have a look at this essay. It's not too bad. It is 100 marks, obviously, because most things are 100 or 150 or 120 for take-homes. So I'm not going to read the whole blurby thing up here. All right, but basically it's just looking at, we need to understand the past to understand the present. All right, so that's something that I have mentioned to you guys beforehand. So your essay is an academic essay of 1,000. That's way too fat. Hold on. I'm fat shaming the line. I just don't like big, thick lines when we're working through stuff. Okay. So you're writing an essay of 1,600 to 1,800 words. So like I said, if you're getting to one, so you can get to basically 2,000 words and you're not going to be penalized. All right. So it just gives you that little bit of buffer. But please, guys, if you've got to the 1617 and you feel you've said enough, please don't just deliberately try and go add stuff just for the sake of meeting that top word count or going over that word count. That is really not worthwhile. I really am pro quality work over quantity waffling. It's not worth it. And when I'm marking these things, I don't want to be going on and on and on and on. Okay, so not that my marking impacts you guys, but it's that you don't want me bored when I'm reading your essays. You want to keep me engaged, because if you're keeping me engaged, it means you're doing the right thing. Okay. So if we have a look at this essay, you will notice, I don't know why it's jumping over itself. I'm sorry about that. So I just want to, again, change my pen here. All right. We are looking at 3 main points. So we've got our 3 bullet points, which are the focus of the essay. All right, so if we have a look at the first point, what you're going to be doing is using Bloom's taxonomy. We're looking at describing. So when you're doing description, the idea is that you need to give me as much detail as possible. It's about the intricacies. It's about the finer bits of information that paint the picture of the journalism industry during the apartheid era. So it's that I should be able to get a very clear overall sense of what happened during the apartheid era when it comes to the journalism industry. And this can be through the description of laws and different restrictions that are put in place. All right. Whoa, that went very funny. It can also be on the censorship that took place. And basically, what you're doing is you are looking at the restrictions placed on the journalists and the publications, so you can bring in individual examples as well as publications as a whole during this time, and how journalism was used to fight for democracy and freedom of the press. So what is important here is you're not only looking at the negative side in terms of, yes, exactly, almost like an overview, but you're not only looking at the negative things the government did to the journalists and publications during the apartheid era. You're also going to look at how the alternative press and the black press were used to fight for democracy and freedom of the press. So that particular point is divided into the two separate sections. So I would break this bullet point down into 2 paragraphs, or at minimum, should I say 2 paragraphs, guys. A pet peeve of mine, which I can't stand, is if a paragraph takes up an entire page. Rather break it up. All right, remember, I'm marking on a screen on a tablet with a pen. So if you notice my handwriting is messy and stuff, it's because I mark like I would mark on a piece of paper. That's just my chosen style of marking. And I need those breaks, A, to give you feedback, B, to give my eyes a break. So paragraphs are important. So I would personally break this up into the apartheid era in terms of the laws, restrictions, censorship, and what have you. So like we talked about the redacted information, the laws in place with talking about other political parties, with the lists of banned journalists, all that kind of thing. And then I would do another paragraph then speaking to how the media fought back against the apartheid regime. So the black and alternative press, so publications such as Drum and what have you, I would split those two up. If you try and blend those together into one big thing, for one, it's going to be too long. For two, it's going to get clumsy, cluttered, and difficult to follow. So it's better to split those two separate sections up. All right. That's my little splurb. Questions from your side? Any questions just specifically with this point? I will get to the other points and then I'm just going to open the floor up after that. But if there are any questions with this point in particular. Nonjabulo, yeah, you can use subheadings, no problem at all. Great. Okay. I hope this NSS does help give clarity. That's the point of them. All right, so now let's move on to the next point. Do you know subheadings wouldn't count as part of the word count? Guys, even if you notice that you're a bit over in that, just please give me a word count at the end. I know it's not a requirement. It's just nice to have, but it's not a necessity. Luca, no, you don't have to use subheadings. I know personally for my writing style, I don't do well with subheadings where others prefer subheadings. It's totally up to your writing style. I don't mind them being present or not being present. All right. So it's very much determined by your manner in which you like to break down essays. All right. So once we've looked at the past and we've looked at the laws and the fighting for democracy, the next thing is you're going to have a discussion. So you're going to discuss the role of journalists, okay, in the media. Sorry, I'm getting these lines take a while. In the media and society post-apartheid, and how this role is shifting and changing with the increased use of new media for information gathering. All right. So with this particular part of the question, what you are doing is looking at our current media landscape. And this is a landscape that is founded on freedom of the press, the media's ability to cover events of a political nature, cultural, societal, religious, everything, because media have press freedom. So if we did not have press freedom, we wouldn't have the information presented to us. There would be constant censorship and oppression and what have you. So what's really important for this particular point is to look at the media industry today and all the multiple factors that influence it, but with a focus on new media and information gathering. So with this particular point, you're looking at, like I say, the role of journalists and the media. So those are two separate entities in the post-apartheid South Africa. So that's with holding people accountable, acting as the fourth estate, making sure that we know what's going on in the world around us. But then how this role is shifting and changing with new media. So added pressures because of the 24/7 news run, added pressure because there are so many people reporting on events, people's mistrust of the media in the digital environment because of fake news. So what I'm wanting to see there, again, two parts: the media and journalists post-apartheid, and then the digital environment. So there's, again, the first sentence is one aspect, and the second line, sorry, of the sentence is another aspect. So far we've got four key areas we're looking at. So when you're looking at this point, again, I would split it into two paragraphs. One looking at the role of journalists and media, and the next paragraph looking at the shift and change because of new media. Right, does that point make sense? Any questions at all? Anything you guys want to clarify? Okay. It makes me nervous too. Well, you must message me and we can talk through it. That's what I'm here for. But preferably before 10 a.m. tomorrow morning or Tuesday next week. So I can talk to you without my signal dropping every 2 seconds, because that's no fun. Okay. When they refer to the role, are they referring to radical and collaborative? Manisha, yes, you can bring that in 100%, or you can just speak to how the media hold people accountable. And so it basically, you can break it down into those four sectors, but otherwise you're speaking about it in general. Cameron, this is a judge-free zone. It's due the 14th. Yeah, never need to worry about well, me judging. Then yeah, there we go, Grace. Perfect. Spend the weekend working on it and then go, Annie, help me. All right. And guys, if you need to contact me in the evenings, please don't voice note in the evenings. Please type messages just in the evenings. I live in a very open planned house, and I often don't have my headphones and that with me. So my husband and I are both working in a combined space. So it just makes it easier if you type at night. Okay. No, you mustn't be so nervous. You must just deep breaths. I promise it's not that. It's a simple essay. It's just because it's the first one for June. Must our writing style remain in a formal tone throughout the essay? No, Tamika, it must be formal academic writing, not a news article or anything like that. That's coming later. So yeah, so this one's the academics, and then later you guys get to have a bit of creativity with the POE. So that's why we're getting this one done and out the way. Okay. So let's have a look at the last point. Again, we're going to be describing, and you are going to be describing the ethical dilemmas and implications which have arisen due to society's use and reliance on new media over traditional media. Okay, so there's going to be possibly a few little overlaps between this point over, let me get my pointer, between here and here, okay? Because where this one is looking at information gathering, if you think about it, we as society, we use the internet to gather information, but it also means that we have become so reliant on our new media that there are ethical considerations like fake news, like misinformation, and there's the ethical issues that journalists would rather get their stories out first to the people than worry about fact checking or doing extra research and finding those additional people to interview or what have you. So it's that there are major implications when there is so much pressure on the media to work beyond what is socially acceptable. So what's really important here is just looking at how we as society focus on new media to gather information and the pressures it's putting on the journalism industry. Okay. Does that make sense, guys? Does it need to be context? No, it can be international. It can be it doesn't specify SA, so it can be international, it can be local. Totally up to you guys. What else, guys? What other questions? All right, so then it says, throughout this academic essay, support with theoretical discussion with relevant examples. Do you say the pressure it puts on the journalists? No, yes, no. So what the pressure from the new media, what pressure it puts on the journalists. So basically how we as society, because we're so reliant on digital media, it puts all this added pressure on the journalists to get media out 24/7, and then that becomes really problematic because, yeah, exactly, almost how quickly they need to work, how many stories they have to put out every day, how we are expecting news basically minute by minute as these events occur. So like we see live tweets and streaming happening as events are occurring. So it's that we as society, we are a now society. We want the information now, not just now, not now in the true South African sense, but it's that we want things as and when they unfold. But that means that journalists are expected to be working 24/7. No problem, Elia. All right. What other questions, guys? Pleasure. Go for it. Oh, shame, man. Well, see, but yeah, it's just about taking it bit by bit. Well, trust me, if anything, VC will kick the waffler out of you by the time you finish your degree. Yeah, 5 modules is a lot in a semester. My word. You guys are not taking it easy on yourselves. So I'm going to ask for relevant examples. Yes, Bethany. So anything where you are showing me an example, such as specific laws, or where a journalist has, stepped out of line, or where there's been an example of, press freedom, like reporting on an event that is, like, for example, Ramaphosa and all his millions of dollars that were stolen from his place. Like that, we only know about that because of press freedom. If we were still in the apartheid regime, those kinds of things would be silenced. For point one, can we talk about how the media found ways to go around the law? Yes, Grace. So that is for the second part where you talk about them fighting for democracy and freedom. So that's where you would bring in going around the laws to try and bring about accurate and truthful information. Right. What other questions? So for this particular essay, there are no age limits on the sources because it is something. It's like a historic academic essay where you're looking the apartheid era. So it only makes sense for you to have sources from back then. So in this instance, you don't. Sure. What other questions, guys? Ask away. This is the time while you've got me. Nothing? Oh, thank goodness. Asima, that makes me so happy when it becomes simpler rather than more complicated. Yeah, Bethany, go for it. Go for it, Bethany.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Cool. So you in point one, should we during the apartheid era, should we also talk about like the working conditions during apartheid?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
It's anything to do with the journalism industry.
And then should we also talk about the influence of apartheid on the media and journalism, mentioning all the laws and restrictions?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. Nina, no, there's no limits to the subheadings. If it helps you to write and helps you to break down the essay, you're welcome to use as many as you need. Listen, if you were using one every paragraph, that it starts to like cut the flow of the essay, that does negatively impact you. But as long as your subheadings make sense, then that's absolutely fine. What else, guys? Okay. Now, don't get excited. We're not disappearing just yet because I just want to speak to one thing for Learning Unit 4. I know the chances are that most of you have not gone through Learning Unit 4. It's fine. I totally get it. But I just need to go through it because of the tight deadlines. Would we have bring up the three big laws of the apartheid? No, Grace, you've got to stick to the media laws. So only the laws that influence only the laws that influence the media. Awesome, Karen. Justin, there's no textbook to help us with this. There is the principles and practices, the first chapter of PM1, your prescribed material one. That helps. So that's definitely there. Sure. Okay. Any other questions with regards to the assignment, guys, or the part? Okay. I have four roles: truth, providing a voice, being a watchdog of society, and being facilitator for democracy. Yeah, Yolandi, that's great. Okay, so the ethical dilemmas All right, sorry, let me pull the question back up. Sorry, I thought because everyone went quiet. Okay, here, page. Okay, so if we have a look. So when we're talking about the ethical dilemmas and the implications, this is the issues that arise because of new media. So remember, new media is any digital media. So because of our reliance on new media and because of us being a now generation and wanting information as and when things occur, the ethical dilemmas come up that, we question the strength of the news stories, the verifying of facts, that the spread of misinformation and fake news, because people will see a story and just immediately share it rather than checking it. So it's all the problems that arise because we are so reliant on our digital media. Yeah. And if you notice, a lot of news stories online will have errors because we don't have sub editors in anymore. And entail racism in reporting as well as the massacre. So Manisha, it's not, how do I put it? It's not that there was racism in reporting, there was racism in everything, but it was more that media was forced to report on events in a way that was deemed appropriate by government. So if something was not in public interest, they would not let us report on it. All right. I don't know how you're going to bring in the massacre because that's not media specific. So it depends on the way in which you're going to use it. Yeah, non-disclosure is also another ethical issue. Will an ethical dilemma include the fact that citizens are not being held accountable? Yes, Yolandi, you can bring that in, but it's more that we aren't being held accountable about when we share and distribute fake news. That's one of the bigger issues. Oh, there you go. Sorry, I've just seen your second, for example, taking photos. Yes, yeah. I find the word count crippling as there's just so much to write. Yeah, Lou, that's what I'm saying. I do give that bit of leeway, but obviously I can only give so much leeway because then, it's, I can't spend 3 hours marking one. You can do whole thesis on this for masters and doctorates and all that, so I completely get that. Everything was censored at 43 or 40 odd laws. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so you would definitely mention those. Um, so you would state that there were, I think it was 43 or 45 laws or whatever, and then you could just speak to two or three that were most impactful. Alu, but if it had an extra 1,000 words, then everyone would complain that the essays are too long, that the word count is too high at a first year level. Or I know it's your second year, but it's a journalism one, so it's a bit of a tricky one. Yeah, because don't forget, I'm the one who set the essay, so I know the inner workings of all of it. I was the one who wrote the essay, should I say, the brief for the essay. Right. What other questions, guys? While you've got me. Yes, Grace, they are. It's great. I'm loving it. Finally, some form of accountability. But the problem is that others aren't following. Twitter is going to be the tricky one because of Elon Musk and his thing of wanting full freedom of the press. Yeah, they don't block the post. They'll say this has not been fact checked or whatever. So the thing is, people don't care. They'll just post it anyway, or they'll just share it. Anything else, guys? Nothing? All right. Yeah, so you can bring in the uh, ethical journalism network, ethical journalism, the principles of ethical journalism. So you can bring that in, but then but how you bring them is by speaking about how those ethical boundaries get pushed all the time because of new media. Anything else? I'm not trying to rush you guys. I just want to make sure that everyone knows or everyone has asked me the questions that they might have. Okay. So just, yay, I'm so glad. I know assignments are always overwhelming until you break them down. Yeah, Grace, 100%. Can definitely bring that in. If it's relevant, chuck it in. All right. Um, sorry, I'm just having a look. Please may go over the rubric. Guys, leave it time for breakfast. No problem. Me so much. Okay. Um, non-jabula, okay, hold on. Let me pull it back up. So you guys can go and break down go and read through the rubric. All that they're trying to, if you have a look at the structure of it, it's 10 marks for your introduction conclusion, so 5 marks, 5 marks. Let's go to the next page. That's the intro. So here it gives you a little bit of a breakdown in terms of the post-apartheid, journalism during and post-apartheid, and gives you a little breakdown there. And then here it's just explaining that you have not spoken about it, you have spoken about it, and then you've given exceptional detail. It's a very basic rubric, but one nice thing about it is it is giving you a little bit of focus here in this particular box. So you'll notice it's 10, like I said, 10 marks for intro and conclusion combined, so 5 marks, 20 marks for apartheid, 20 marks for journalism today, and 20 marks for the ethics in journalism. So each section of the essay is just as important as the next. So each of those bullet points have the same weighting behind them. And then you'll see that it is 20 marks for your application to the concepts, and that's your examples. So it means that 20 marks goes towards, so where you have your 3 points and all the theory that you put in, there's an additional 20 marks that actually speaks specifically to the examples. So that's actually quite a nice thing that those additional marks are provided, purely because it means that you're getting more marks for the work that you do. And then it's 10 marks for your structure, presentation, making sure there's paragraphs and all that kind of thing. All right. Yes, there's theory in the textbook. Chapter 1 of Prescribed Material 1, Principles and Practices, speaks to this. And then there's a lot of information online. And if you have a look at VC Learn, there's a lot of additional readings there as well when it speaks to the apartheid era. Sure. All right, let me pull back up the slide. So just the one thing I want that's really important for Learning Unit 4, it's pretty much the most important thing, is what we call, sorry, wrong slide, it's this, your pillars of newsworthiness. So they speak about it in PM1, so again, principles and practices, and it's these pillars of newsworthiness are what make a story important to society. So the more of the pillars that are ticked off, the more important the story is, and the more the further. So if you're thinking about a newspaper, the further forward it would be. So the stories that are on the front page or on the second page are the stories that tick all the boxes. So those would be novelty, so something new or different or unusual. Importance, so floods, disasters, strikes, all that kind of thing. So it's got importance to us, so it's actually going to impact our lives directly. That there's interest, so it's topics that we are keen to know about or want to talk about. The timing, so as you guys know, news has to be, the words in it, new. So old news is not news anymore unless something new has developed within the story. Okay, so it's got to be information or stories that are happening now. The size of impact, so the more people that are going to be impacted by the story, the more newsworthiness it holds, because the more people it impacts, then obviously the more awareness we need to have. That's why you'll notice stories about, say, a hurricane in the USA gets more coverage than a hurricane that is going over Madagascar, because of the number of people it's going to impact. Also because we have a very skewed Western perspective within our media specifically. Then we have what we call proximity. So it's how close the news is to you. So it's not only geographical, but also emotional proximity. So, you might be worried about floods in Australia because you have family living in Australia, or maybe you're worried about, polar vortex in the States because you have family living in the States, or friends or what have you. So the more you have an emotional investment in a place, the more you are going to want to know what's going on. Then we have familiarity. So the more familiar we are with the person, the more likely we are to read the story. And then the surprise, the OMG factor. So I always think of the Daily Sun. I love Satan Goes to School, Crazy Man Bets Our Baby. So it's those stories that are written that make us go, what? And that we don't believe it. Okay, I know the Daily Sun is not like legit and all those things, but they still make me smile when I'm having a bad day. Then there's results. So when an election has happened with COVID, with all the stats and figures, when we need to know how many people went to vote at municipal elections, all that kind of stuff, we have those results. Then we have relevance, so how relevant it is to the reader. So it's got to actually relate to our lives to be important. We have our personalities, okay, so celebrities in all different fields. If it's a story, if Beyonce goes and eats a block of cheese, it's more newsworthy than if, an average person does. I know, random example, but I'm just trying to get through this quickly because I know that you guys want to focus on your assignment. Then there's the power. So, the more power a person holds within society. So like Elon Musk, who's just basically a random dude, but he has power because he has money. Then we have our bad news and conflict. We know bad news sells. The more news. I'm glad that made you laugh. But so we know we tend to gravitate towards bad news because we're just twisted people. Then availability, so the more prominent something is to society or the area is to society, the more coverage there is. We do love drama. Wow, we are special creatures, aren't we? Then we have mobility. So I'll never forget, which publication was it? I think it was the Sowetan. I stand to be corrected on the publication, but there was a publication. I used to always know which publication it was. I've gone blank. But they did a reports on a story where two policemen were, or police people, should I say, were caught having sex while they were meant to be looking after a prisoner. And the front page of their publication was the two of them having sex. And they sold out for the first time ever in their life their publication, or first time in its existence, should I say, the publication. And there was a massive debate around this because it was basically sensationalizing an event. And what was terrible was that in the end of it, both the people involved within the story ended up killing themselves. But it was that it helped sell the paper, so they didn't care at the time. But it's dreadful in the same token. So it's all about, we should never have exposed that kind of thing. It also shouldn't be on the front of a newspaper because of children and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, anyway. And then lastly, it's our human. Yes, that's true. Bad news is good news because that's what sells. And then the last one is human interest. Those stories that pull on our heartstrings and make us want to, read the story, get involved, feel something. So that also is important. So when you guys are starting to think about writing your own pieces, you need to think of these pillars of newsworthiness to make sure that they're in your own stories. Because if they're in your stories and you think about the prominence and the proximity and you think about all those things, then you're going to write a good piece because it means that it's going to reach people on multiple levels, or it means that I'm going to find it interesting because you thought about many different angles in which to approach the story or stories because you guys are writing more than one. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Does that make sense? Sorry, my chair just sprung up from me. Cool. Always wonderful when I'm making some sense to you guys. Always worry sometimes that you're just rambling for nothing. All right, guys. Then that's it for this evening. All right. Good luck with the assignment. If you need anything, you know that I am a WhatsApp away, and I will reply as and when I have signal and what have you. It's a pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for joining tonight. Chat to you guys soon. Bye.